Hey there, it's Byron the Hospitalist again. Welcome back to part 2 of my summary of the pathophysiology of COVID-19. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd suggest you go back and watch that first because this video game metaphor probably makes no sense to you otherwise. The link is below. Otherwise, let's proceed with a discussion of what might be happening in the cardiopulmonary loop.
Hype!
Okay, now that we've surmised that the SARS-2 coronavirus induces some level of vasoconstriction from RAS, endothelial intimal damage from IL-6, and potentially a propensity for microthrombus formation in a DIC-like pattern, let's start to think bigger. The fun thing about pathophysiology loops is they are true loops, so really you could start anywhere. So let's start with what we know, which is that while not classical ARDS, a lot of these patients have bad hypoxemia. Hypoxia in the lung leads to regional pulmonary vasoconstriction, and this is independent of RAS. Let's add in some information from our previous molecular level discussion. There's a lot of oxidative stress, with more reactive oxygen species than nitric oxide floating around than normal. This leads, again, to intimal damage, and now the question is, does this lead to real-life microthrombi in the lung vasculature? I don't know. People seem to suddenly be crashing about a week into what had been a mild illness. Are there radiographic or echocardiographic findings similar to what you might see in PE or veno-occlusive disease? We don't know yet, but I'm going to leave it out there. But, if present, this would imply rapid development of a VQ mismatch that worsens hypoxia. And hey, regardless of the clot question, vasoconstriction leads to high pulmonary pressures, and that's not helping either. Let's not forget that the actual ARDS is still happening, leading to shunt physiology and high right-sided filling pressures. On no planet do I actually think right-sided filling pressures are causing a majority of the cardiac problems. But it's definitely not helping, and more importantly, it's a good segue into oddball things happening in the heart. But do you see what I'm saying about these loops being like a Rube Goldberg video game? So it gets worse. People with severe COVID-19 disease are dying from cardiomyopathy. I cannot imagine that right-sided pressures are a major contributor, but it's really here for the sake of continuity. More likely, circulating cytokines are causing hypodynamic failure, and it seems that Italian patients with diabetes and hypertension seem to be at an increased risk of dying, and may already have existing cardiac dysfunction and small vessel disease. In select cardiac patients, all these contribute to worsening cardiac output, which, to skip a few steps that everyone kind of knows, leads to worsening cardiomyopathy. RAS also causes systemic vasoconstriction, right? Importing our prior discussion from the molecular level, oxidative stress and intimal damage show up again. You see where we're going here. Microvascular injury may again contribute to microthrombi. Unlike my prior moonshot conjecture for the lungs, we have at least scant anecdotal evidence of cardiac microthrombi derived from autopsies of Chinese patients. What's unclear is whether the pre-existence of small vessel disease due to diabetes or hypertension might contribute to this propensity. Also, it's unsurprising that this feeds back into the pulmonary loops, because this is a Metroidvania game and those are the rules. Okay, disclaimer time. I'm not a cardiologist, pulmonologist, or nephrologist. At the end of this day, it's just me, a simple country doctor, conjecturing. As I was reminded, discussing this with a former colleague, biologic plausibility does not equate to clinical outcomes. Still, I think these loops are helpful for thinking through why some treatment strategies are being tested. There's a trial of losartan to see if RAS blockade for alteration of ACE2-mediated viral cell entry is helpful. Another trial of administered soluble ACE2 to potentially impede viral entry and upregulate the lung protector minor angiotensins. There's also a trial of angiotensin 2 to reduce ACE2 to block viral entry, so this gets very confusing very fast. This is almost exactly the opposite approach, but is paradoxically also plausible. Please watch my prior cartoon about AC and ARBs in the context of COVID for a diagram as to why. IL-6 blockade is the one I'm watching. Tocilizumab is already out, and there's a trial of the related sarilumab underway. There's an open-label study enrolling 10 patients on oral sildenafil, which plausibly treats some of the pulmonary vasoconstriction, or even alters the reactive oxygen versus nitric acid ratio, but I'm really hand-waving on that one. If the hypothesis about microthrombi or a DIC-like physiology driving the morbidity is confirmed by further study, therapeutic anticoagulation might be an approach to mitigating downstream effects of infection. But getting at the source of the infection is important too. So,
Hype!
also, antivirals.
Brutal.
That would also be good.
Excellent.
That'd be ideal, but what I do know is that I'm likely to be proven wrong in some way within the next 2 weeks. But that's how science goes, you know? In any case, if you liked this, hit like, subscribe, share, and tell me your thoughts on Med Twitter. Stay safe, everyone.
This has been a production of I Am Sketchpad.